Some coins that appear completely ordinary have sold for $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, or even more when they contain the right error, variety, condition, or tiny minting detail. Most people would spend them without a second thought. But collectors know that one nearly invisible difference can turn a coin worth a few cents into a serious piece of money. And today, we're going to uncover exactly what those differences are, how to spot them, and which tiny details can send a coin's value from pocket change into thousands of dollars. So before you spend another old coin, look closely, because the most valuable one may be the one that looks completely ordinary. In 2012, the Royal Canadian Mint released a series of 25-cent pieces commemorating the War of 1812. Heroes like Sir Isaac Brock and Tecumseh struck onto circulating quarters. Each of these designs carried a mintage of 6,250,000 coins. So right away, this isn't a needle in a haystack rarity. Millions exist. But here's what most people miss when they find one in change. These quarters came out two different ways, colored and non-colored. And that single difference changes what a collector will pay for one. Look at the reverse. If the maple leaf background and the portrait are rendered in full color paint over the engraving, you're holding the color version. If it's plain steel gray with just engraved lines, that's the non-colored circulation strike. Most of what ended up in everyday change is non-colored. The colored ones were released in smaller numbers through special packaging, and are the ones that catch a collector's eye first. Now here's the detail that trips people up when they try to identify these at home. The coin itself is struck on copper-plated steel, not the bronze and nickel blend older quarters used. That means it's magnetic. Grab a fridge magnet. If a 2012 quarter jumps to it, that confirms you're holding the correct multiply plated steel composition, which matters, because it's also how you catch a genuine plating or striking anomaly if one turns up in your change. Since the coin with damaged or missing plating will behave differently under a magnet and show bare gray steel, where the copper layer should be. Most circulated colored examples trade for just a few dollars, nice but not headline material. Where the value actually jumps is condition. A color example that's never touched a pocket, still in its original mint packaging with the paint completely unworn and vividly saturated, is worth meaningfully more than one that spent even a few weeks in someone's coin jar because the color rubs and fades fast once it's handled. Certified examples graded and encapsulated by a service like PGS or ICCS in top uncirculated condition with full unbroken color are the ones serious collectors actively hunt for, and they carry a real premium over the raw, circulated version sitting in your change tray. So that's coin one. Common by mintage, but with a condition sealing most people never see, because most examples never survive circulation with their color intact. But that quarter isn't the coin that trips people up the hardest. That title goes to something a lot smaller, and a lot easier to accidentally spend without a second look. Here's where things get genuinely tricky, because this coin story isn't about a design. It's about what's happening inside the metal. And you can't see it just by looking. In the early 2000s, the Royal Canadian Mint was in the middle of switching what pennies were actually made of. Older cents were struck on copper-plated zinc. Newer ones moved to copper-plated steel. And 2004 and 2005 sit right in that transition window, meaning both years were struck with a small P composition mark and on some pieces without it. The two compositions look almost identical to the naked eye. Same color, same design, same date. The only way to actually tell them apart is the same trick as the quarter, a magnet. Here's the identification, step by step. Take your 2004 penny and touch it to a magnet. If it sticks, you're holding the steel core version. If it doesn't move at all, that's the copper-plated zinc core, the older composition still being used that year. The mint mark differences between P and no P cents from this window are harder to find in the standard version, though not considered extremely rare, which is exactly the kind of coin that rewards someone willing to actually check, because almost nobody does. Most 2004 pennies you'll find, regardless of composition, are worth exactly 1 cent in circulated condition. Don't let the word variety fool you into thinking every one is a windfall. But that changes once you're talking about an uncirculated example with full original red color and no handling wear. Certified gem condition specimens of this era graded MS-67 and higher by PCS or NGC, have shown up in the collector market carrying real premiums over face value, sometimes into the double and even triple digits, specifically because so few pennies from any given year survive that long without toning, scratching, or losing their red color. The composition switch isn't really what makes the coin valuable on its own. It's a curiosity that gets collectors looking closely. Condition is what actually moves the price. So remember that two nearly identical pennies, one magnetic, one not, both worth the same 1 cent if they've been through circulation, and both capable of being worth dramatically more if one happens to have survived in gem, untouched condition. Now, if a magnet can already separate an ordinary penny from a scarcer one, imagine what happens when you go back further to a penny where the design itself, not just a metal, tells two completely different stories depending on exactly what you're looking at. This is the one that changes how you think about every wheat penny you've ever set aside. Most 1956 Lincoln cents, whether struck in Philadelphia with no mint mark or in Denver with a small D beneath the date, are common, genuinely common. If yours is worn smooth from decades in circulation, it's worth exactly what it looks like, a few cents, maybe up to $1 in decent shape. That's the baseline, and it's important to say clearly, because everything that follows only applies to a small slice of surviving examples. Here's where the story splits. Look at the mint mark first. Is there a small D under the date or nothing? Then look at the mint mark itself under a loop. Mint workers hand-punched the D onto Denver dies that year, and sometimes the punch landed twice in slightly different spots, leaving what collectors call a repunched mint mark, a faint shadow D sitting just behind the main one. That single doubling detail is enough to separate an ordinary Denver cent from one collector's specifically search for. A certified MS-67 red example with this repunched mint mark sold for $1,620 at Heritage Auctions in April 2021. Real money for a coin that, without the doubling, would be worth a fraction of that. That's not even the strongest reveal on this date. Flip your attention to the lettering instead. Liberty. In God we trust. The wheat stalks on the reverse. On some 1956 cents. The dies themselves were doubled during production, creating a double die variety where letters and design elements show a raised, three-dimensional shelf of extra metal. This isn't die wear or a scratch. Genuine doubling has a rounded, raised quality. You can feel catch a fingernail under magnification. And the values climb sharply here. A 1956 proof cent with a double die, graded PR 68 red, sold for $16,000 through Heritage Auctions in January 2003. That's a coin that started life worth 1 cent. Now here's the number that changes everything, and it has nothing to do with an error at all, just pure, exceptional condition. A 1956 no mint mark. Business Strike sent graded MS-67 red gem sold for $13,200. And over on the Denver side, PCGS Coinfax lists an auction record of $18,000 for a 1956 degraded MS-67 plus red, sold in December 2022. These aren't error coins. They're just ordinary design pennies that happen to survive nearly 70 years without a single scratch, without toning, with the full original mint red color still blazing across the surface. A condition so rare for a coin this old that almost none exist. And at the very top of the list, the number that made me want to make this video in the first place. PCGS records show an auction record of $57,600 for a 1956 MS-67 plus red example, the current top of the entire date. Same date most people spend without a second glance. Same design every wheat penny collector has seen 1,000 times. The only thing separating that coin from the one in your jar is condition so perfect it essentially doesn't exist in circulated coins at all. That price wasn't for a typical 1956 penny. Not even close. It was for a certified top population example with flawless surfaces and full original color. The kind of coin that might exist in only 1 or 2 known specimens at that grade. The overwhelming majority of 1956 pennies, double dies included, are common, well-documented, and worth only modest sums. But that's exactly why the standouts matter, because most people who own one will never think to check. 3 coins, 3 completely different reasons to look closer. A plating and color detail on a quarter most people assume is worthless commemorative change. A metal composition you can only detect with magnet. And a penny where the difference between 1 cent and tens of thousands of dollars comes down to a mint mark, a doubled letter, or surfaces so clean they've survived 7 decades untouched. Before you spend another old coin without looking, do 3 things. Check the date, check for a mint mark or doubling under magnification, and touch a magnet to anything from Canada made after 2000. Most of what you find will be exactly what it looks like, pocket change. But now you know precisely what separates that from the coin worth setting aside.